forgot one piece, my mic. Hopefully we've got the sound figured out that it's not doing it anymore. I'm going to share it too. We have the organization I'm the president of has a big Facebook group. So I'm going to share it in that. I haven't shared it. So many people don't even know that I'm doing these live streams. So I'm going to do that really quick. Oh, this is the wrong one. See if it shows up here. Copy link. And if you're watching this on the replay, obviously I can't cut this out. This is a live show. And this will get people time to come on too. So maybe it'll increase the viewership. Like we already get quite way more views than I thought. But still, I thought, well, a lot of people didn't even know. I know my husband was talking to someone yesterday and they didn't even know that I was now doing this. So obviously I don't get to let everyone know. Facebook seems to not necessarily allow all the posts to have the reach in all the groups. So we'll see. We'll see if this will increase it a little bit. Is the sound better today? Or is it still scratchy? My husband came and played with it yesterday. Is there any sound at all? I hope there is. Let me know. Give me a thumbs up or something if you can hear it. So welcome to, if you're just coming on, if you're coming on from our Facebook group, Unified Grassroots, welcome to the new show that we just started. I say we. I don't know why I always say we. Maybe because I have people helping me with tech and stuff, but we just started this. It would have been last Friday. Was it last Friday? Anyways, I think this is episode 7. We didn't have one last Monday. I was at some scratching, yes, not as much as yesterday. Here, I'm going to try lowering it even more. Let's see if this works. Thanks, Steve, for being a loyal watcher and letting me know. There you go. Is this better? I'd like to show you guys what I use, and now I can't even hear myself in here, so I don't know if it's still working. Let's see. Is it still scratching or is it done now? I will eventually have this figured out. Eventually, all the tech will be working. I've actually been talking to a whole bunch of people about coming on the show, but I want to make sure it's good now. Okay, great. If I get really close though, it probably isn't. So I'll stay where I am right now. But can you guys still hear me? Is it loud enough? Because I turned it way down. If you can still hear me, then we're good to go. And this is like a super like expensive mic. It's a Shure mic. And all of this was more than I want to admit. But I have my husband to thank for supporting me in everything that I do, including this. So if but yeah, so there's a bit of static once in a while. So it's still doing it. Let's see if I put down the output, see if that works. So there's still static, but can you guys hear me Okay, is it loud enough? The weird part is it's doing it randomly. Maybe I'll take my phone away from it. Maybe it's my phone. My phone is on this focus, right? If somebody's really good with tech and you might be able to help me, let me know. Okay, you can hear me. Okay, great. Well, we're going to get going anyways. If you're watching from Facebook group Unified Grassroots, I've been doing a show live every day for over a week now. I think this is episode 7 or 8. I can't remember. Okay, airplane mode. Someone said that. Okay, I will do that. Maybe that'll help. That might be what it was too, because I kind of always had my phone right on top of the focus, right? So yeah, so I've been doing a daily show now for day 8. I've decided to push it back to 11:30, 12 o'clock start time. It just gives me more time to prep for the episode, so I'm not looking for things as much when I'm getting started. Even today, I was like, oh, what do I talk about? I've talked about so much in the last few days, but there's plenty out there if you go looking. So, okay, great. It's loud enough for everyone. I don't know if you guys can see the comments, but a lot of people are helping me figure it out too. So, Steve is awesome. If you don't follow him, I highly recommend you follow him. I'm actually thinking of hiring him to come to our house to help us with the boiler. We have an outdoor boiler, a wood pellet boiler with like a big grain bin, because our first year in this house, the propane bill was insane. And Sandra, if you just see your comments, it's because you're likely one of the only ones on Facebook. I have people from Twitter as well as Rumble, and I think that's it. I just realized I didn't add Instagram. I probably should. So I'll do that too. I can stream up to 8 places. So, and that's strange. Now my video just shut off for a little bit. And it's weird because it kind of has this Wi-Fi and it says connection is unstable, but I have it wired in. I don't even have the Wi-Fi on. I'm going to double check that setting. Yeah, my Wi-Fi is not on. Well, maybe it's just the Starlink. Maybe when it doesn't have a lot of bandwidth, it goes down a bit, but it seems to be doing fine now. Yeah. Okay. So some are watching on YouTube and it froze. It just froze, yes. Right now, it seems to be fine. I can tell when it's not doing great because the little Wi-Fi thing shows up instead of how many people are watching. So we'll see. Okay, so Steve said the sound drivers are next, so it's your computer sound hardware. Yeah, I'll have to have a look. Hopefully it's a little bit better and a lot less scratchy. And it's weird too because I've been on people's show and it didn't do it. Maybe I'll try to connect everything. I've got a new MacBook Pro like with a lot of RAM on it for when I go out to do interviews and stuff on the road. So I thought it'd be easier to kind of have everything connected, but right now this is running on a desktop. So, but maybe I'll try connecting it to my laptop. I just you can't use as many screens, and right now I have 4 screens. So one for the live stream, one for the Twitter stuff, one for the videos, and one if I want to Google stuff. So, yeah, Mac has a superior. Yeah, Mac is better in a lot. I used to be only used to Mac, and then when I started the studio, I actually built this. So it would have been over a year ago, and I hadn't started yet. But yeah, I just finally, I think I have my Hashimoto more under control. I have a lot more energy, and I also have help with the kids, so I can record without interruption. So yeah, so you might still hear them in the background because I'm still at home. So they're in the living room right now. So, but they've been pretty good. So yeah, so I do this now daily. I think we're going to be doing it around 12 o'clock just so it can be consistent. Today, obviously, I was ready a little bit earlier, so I came a bit earlier. But yeah, this is a lot of intro for, we're already 10 minutes in and I haven't started yet. But yeah, if you're watching me from the Facebook group, follow me, whether it's on Facebook, my personal Facebook account. So I shared it. I'm obviously not using the Unified Grassroots account because this is my personal show. I want to talk about faith and Unified Grassroots. It's not a faith-based organization. So I decided to do this on my own so that I didn't have to put God in a box or shy away to talk about talking about my faith and my views and how that shapes where I am now and to how I respond to what's going on in the world as a Christian. And I can't take that out because that's like my biggest identity is knowing God and having God lead my life. It's actually what I identify most as before a wife, before a mother. It's my faith. So it's hard to hide that away, and I didn't want to hide it away. So that's why I decided to do this. So yeah, if you don't follow me on YouTube, on Facebook, you can do so. My handle is Nadine G, as in golf Ness, so Nadine G Ness on Twitter, on Facebook. I made everything Nadine G Ness because there was other handle Nadine Ness taken. So not many people have a middle name with that starts with G. So it's my grandmother's name, Gilberte. So in English, when you say it, it's Gilbert, but in French, it's Gilberte. So if you don't know, my first language is French. So I have an accent, not as bad as it used to be, but you'll still hear it sometimes, especially if I'm tired and usually if I drank, but I don't drink anymore. I'm on carnivore, normal alcohol. And yeah, and I actually haven't drank like more than one drink in since before I met my husband, actually. So we're we're not big drinkers. We would enjoy a glass of wine here and there with supper. I use it for cooking a lot for flavor, but that's no alcohol. It evaporates. So yeah, let's get started with this. I will preface this that sometimes as a Christian your flesh gets activated. You want to do things that may not please God, and this is one of those tweets that Trudeau made that activated my flesh. I almost said swear words back in the comments, and I actually had to pray about it first and held back. But and that has happened many times where policies have been placed and it's just another infringements on your rights, and this is what this is. But yeah, as a Christian, I realize I have to reflect Christ in all areas of my life. Do I have a lot of work to do? Yeah, I do. I'm a new Christian, and even when I first became a believer, I used to swear all the time. I used to swear, especially as a police officer. Sometimes you're not even taken seriously unless you swore, uh, especially when I worked up north. But, anyways, this is the tweet. I try not to swear anymore. Has it skipped my lips? Yes, it has. If I get hurt or something, I may still sometimes swear, but it's something God convicted me even a few years after being a Christian. And I remember a lady saying, "You're a Christian, you shouldn't swear." I'm like, "Lady, if you knew all the sin that God is working through with me right now, swearing is the least of your worries." And as I kind of dealt with some of my sin problems, he would uncover other avenue, other issues into my life that I needed to work on. And swearing was one of them. So yeah, you shouldn't hear me swear much. It might still slip out. I'm still human. I'm still a sinful human that still sins all the time, even though I don't want to. But I'm not one of those Christians that's going to come from a high, mighty post and say, "I'm sinless. You all are the problem." I recognize my own problem, my own sin nature. And I can't defeat it and get better until I get closer to Christ. And we can't do it without him. So we can pretend that we're doing it without him. But I honestly believe the only thing that saves us is Jesus Christ. But yeah, let's get started into this topic that made me have to pray a bit before posting. So this is Trudeau is new encroachment on your rights. Now and it's not a secret, he's been going after property rights already. He says there are more than 200,000 short-term rentals across the country, like Airbnb or VRBOS, that could be turned into housing. So we're giving cities more resources to crack down on those rental and unlock more homes for Canadians. So many thoughts go through my head, but his choice of words is unreal. Crack down on those rental, almost as if what they're doing is illegal, what they're doing is not allowed, what almost like they are the problem. And I've noticed this with this government over and over and over. Their failure at running this government is to blame them. The biggest reason we have a shortage of housing across Canada is because of uncontrolled immigration. And that's not new. We've all known this. We've all been saying it for a long time. That's why we have a shortage. That's why the prices of houses are skyrocketing. We don't have the amount of housing. We're not building enough housing to house all the new immigrants we're bringing into Canada. And now Trudeau wants to make those who choose to turn their properties into Airbnb or VRBO, vacation rental, whatever that stands for. He wants to make them the problem. No, it's not just Trudeau's policy. It's people who are being greedy and selfish. I'm not saying they are. This is what the message he's sending with his words. Now, I don't own an Airbnb. This does not personally affect me. Would I want to potentially in the future? Yeah, my husband and I have talked about potentially doing cabins on our land because we live on the river. We have one of the most beautiful views. We planted a vineyard, which we have to replant eventually because we were sold defective plants. We're going to plant more probably next spring, about 2 acres worth. So maybe like 1,500 vines. And we thought, let's make this like a place to get away and have cabins and yeah, where people can get away from the city, experience nature. We just have such beautiful land, beautiful views. We feel like we should be sharing that with the world. And we thought of using Airbnb because it's so much easier. It's so much stress free if we were to go that route. Now this was before I started doing political stuff, before I got involved in what I'm involved with, before Unified Grassroots started. So it might never happen. This is one of our dreams that we had, and maybe even having like a coffee shop slash boutique slash gift shop as well. So like a little escape for women out of the city to get a little break. But yeah, so why I have issues with this? People should be allowed to do what they want with their properties. Like I said yesterday, I fully support freedom as long as those freedom doesn't impeach on other people's freedom. That's why I'm not okay with drug houses because or having meth labs and stuff in your home because the risk of a bomb, an explosion affecting other people is great. I don't believe in necessarily not having any building code because the next person you sell to can't see what's in the walls of how you build it. So I believe there needs to be some legislation. But now we're getting to a point where Trudeau is telling you how to run your home. A lot of people who have Airbnbs too have it in their own home. They'll rent one room. And the fact is, a lot of people have it in their basement and stuff because they can't afford the current housing costs, the current interest rate costs. And a lot of people do this for a living. That's their main job. They have a couple Airbnbs and they clean them, they run them. That's their job. And now Trudeau is yet again trying to take property rights away. This is not the first time. He's also the one that was studying when you build or when you have a home, if the rate or what it's worth goes up when you resell it later on. And I'm not talking flippers, I'm talking your own home. If the rate increases when you go to resell it, you'd be taxed on that. So basically you'd be taxed even if you pass it down to your kids and stuff. So that's not in place yet, but they were doing studies on it. And just another avenue where the government wants to try to take things away from you and to make it more communist. And some people will say, well, that's not communist. I'm going to read to you what communism means, because a lot of people say, well, Canada is more socialist. Socialism, I'm going to go into property. Ownership of property. So socialism allows for both public, government, and private ownership. Essentially, industries are controlled by the states, while non-essential industries can remain privately owned. So that would be socialism. Advocate for the abolish of private property entirely. All properties, businesses, and resources are collectively owned by the community or the state. While people might still own it, telling people what they can do with their property goes more in line with communism. Socialism, they still get to do it. It's just considered a private. There's two sections. There's the crown corporations, or whatever you want to call it. If you're from the US, you don't know what that means. Basically, corporations owned by government. Why do they use the term crown? Is because we're still linked, even if it's just fakely linked to the crown, which is England, the new king. Anyways, and then we also have private ownerships. But in communism, you almost take away all the property rights. So a perfect example of that would be Cuba. In Cuba, people have their home. They were given it to them by the state. Uh, and some of them can rent in their home, but the government dictates who can do that in Cuba. So this would be very similar to Cuba, because you might have your home. They're not going to kick you out of it, but they're going to dictate what you can do for what you can do with it. Anyways, again, I have to hold back my very, very strong opinion on Justin Trudeau and taking away things from people. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about him, because there are other things he's doing that is really irritating me. So we're pausing taxes for 2 months on groceries and everyday essentials. Now, some people will say, well, why does that irritate you, Nadine? And I'm going to explain. It's not that he's pausing taxes on these things, as is that this entire post is extremely misleading. He's trying to make people think that he's taking taxes off of groceries. And a majority of Canadians don't even know that groceries are already not taxed. So if you go to the grocery store, are there things at the grocery store that will be taxed? Yeah, because there's more than just groceries at a grocery store. You have the pharmacy section, you have clothing section in some areas. Some areas you have toy sections. Some areas you will have like shampoo, makeup, all of that. Those things are already taxed. And then you'll have the restaurant section. So if you compare, if you're going to that section that has like things that are already cooked, done, that you just bring home and have for supper, that would be considered the restaurant section. So basically the same as if you were to go to a restaurant and get takeout, the grocery store have that. That was taxed. So if you got a rotisserie chicken, that was taxed. If you got prepared macaroni salad or potato salad, that was taxed. If you went and got chocolate bars and junk food and candies, that was taxed. So what they're doing is they're taking the taxes off of that. But this post is misleading. because he's saying on groceries and every day if it's essential. The fact is, we weren't taxed on groceries. I'm going to play a video too that explains even more why it's misleading. I'm going to play the actual video. I just have to go into here and restart it. Sorry, I'm going to make you guys listen to Trudeau's voice. If you're like me, it's like nails on a chalkboard. But I want you guys to understand this.
Canadians need a break. So that's what we're going to do.
Canadians are about to get a 2-month tax break.
The Trudeau government is giving back this holiday season in the form of a tax break.
That includes temporary relief from the federal sales tax on selected items.
We're getting rid of GST, HST on groceries for 2 months and on some everyday items that add up so quickly. Government doesn't set the price of things at the store, but we can give Canadians a break. That's what we're going to do.
Okay, so I'm going to go back. Okay, I'm going to go back and say, this is so misleading. I hadn't even seen this in the giving back. You're not giving back. This is our money. You're just not getting it. You're not giving us anything, for one. Secondly, you see how he made that snide comment that we can't control the prices, as in the reason you're suffering is because we can't control the prices because the grocery store are screwing you, are taking advantage of you. We've heard that before. We've heard Singh say the exact same thing. Groceries are, their profit margin are extremely low. It's not the groceries store that make the gajillions and gajillions of money off the money you pay. It's mostly will be the processing. It's even not the farmers. It's the processing of all of these things. And the cost has continuously gone up because of the carbon tax. If you ask any trucker, they will tell you how much more it costs to bring a load of material from A to B because of the carbon tax. Everything that comes in the grocery store comes in the grocery store by truck. And most of our groceries in Canada, especially the fruits, the veggies and stuff, come from outside of Canada. So you have even more of an increased cost. But yeah, he shows this receipt. They shows how much you're saving. Look at that. Those are not your groceries. They're all from prepared food, which is the same as a restaurant. Granola bars would be one I would probably consider for that food, but again, it kind of fits into that snacks, candies, chips, stuff like that. Baby size sweater. See, remember when I mentioned in a grocery store, there's more than just grocery. Not a single item on there is groceries. See? But if you don't know this, and the reason I know this is because I worked in a grocery store. I was taught what was taxed and what wasn't taxed. So maybe if I hadn't worked in a grocery store, I might not know this, but I also know this because I learned about taxes and such in college, in university, and probably in school. To be honest, I'm not sure where I learned it. But most Canadians don't know that. And the amount of people who argued with me in the comments of that of that tweet, there's a difference between prepared food and groceries. There's a difference between diapers, chips, and groceries. But anyways, so it's misleading. It's making you think you're going to save that big of a percentage off your grocery store or off your grocery list. For most people, it might be one or two items. But the way he does this video, again, he's misleading the public into thinking he's doing them a bigger favor than he actually is. Yeah, and even this receipt, you can see it. Not a single grocery item there. But it's funny, they pick the few things that are sold at grocery store that they're now going to be not taxing. Yeah, it's manipulation. Here a viewer said he's manipulating people as usual. And why does this bother me so much? I think I think it bothers people more who once used to be fooled by this. I used to be fooled by these kinds of things. Like I said before, I used to be on the left. I used to believe Harper was awful. I used to hate Trump. I had you would call Trump deranged syndrome. I will admit it. I was one of those people. and and once I started actually looking into things, paying attention to what's actually happening, I'm like, wow, are we ever being lied to? And it probably has to do with being trained to profile and recognize when someone's lying to me, read body language and stuff. I'm like, wow, politicians lie a lot. They do. And Trudeau's one of the worst. But yeah, so that's funny. It's funny because a lot of people, it just goes right over their head. And there's so many, we call them truanons, people who just, no matter what they're shown, will stick by Trudeau. and for sure enough, they came on my post. So we had some fun. I had some time to educate them on our Canadian tax system. So another reason why I don't like this, I'll show you guys. So for most people, it might be $5-10 they'll save over the Christmas holiday with this tax break, this gift that Trudeau has given you. But here's someone explaining how this is actually going to create more of an issue. It might actually increase prices over the holidays. He doesn't explain that it might increase prices, but he explains the work that it takes to change all of these things in your businesses. So, to the many thousands of people who keep posting that CFIB is making up the challenges for retailers to implement GST HST holiday, let me know whether wrap gift basket, including a coffee mug, a box of chocolate, and packaged snack foods, is taxable or not during the holidays. It is priced as one item. Here's the CRA guidance help. I can put the link to this tweet too in the comment because it gives you the link to what you can find out what is tax or not. Now tell me what to charge on accessories for a PS5. How about special paint for a model plane? How about children's book with a few stickers in the back? Or how about a puzzle? I went a few weeks ago and Christmas time is, I call it puzzle time. And I even have a puzzle board now. So I love to do puzzles. My whole family, all our kids sit around the table and we do puzzles for hours and we chit chat, we talk, we learn about. It's one of our exciting items. What about puzzle? Which ones are going to be taxed and not taxed? There's puzzles for adults. There's puzzle for kids. Which ones are going to be taxed? I don't know. So still think it's just pressing a button? Imagine if you ran a store with 3,500 items and had to ensure your system and staff properly charged the tax on each one until 9 p.m. December 13th, but then didn't charge the tax at 9 a.m. on December 14th. And this was your busiest season when you and your staff of 5 people are working flat out, and you need to do this all in the next 10 days. Anyone lack common sense here and not recognize how big of a problem this is going to be for businesses during Christmas season, their busiest time of the year? They're already they already increased their hours of work. Now they have to go through their entire store and figure out through magically knowing what should and shouldn't be taxed. And they have 10 days to do it. See, it's policies like this that make me think the liberal Trudeau government are complete idiots who don't know anything about running a business or how regular everyday people live. So yeah, now these businesses will probably have to hire a few more people. That's going to cost a lot more, probably going to increase prices. Who knows? Maybe that's all they'll do. Instead, they'll just increase the prices for the GST. That would be a lot easier. Take it off and increase the price. And then after it's over, just bring it back. Say, no, that's not actually GST. That's just the cost of Christmas season. But yeah, and I worked in a store where we would go through all of the items and had to make sure that they were all priced. There was sales that would be happening too, where you'd change the prices of the sales. But yeah, we're gonna make Christmas easier for everyone this season. We're gonna do this last minute and create a situation where small businesses yet again are gonna be the ones to suffer the most. Okay, do I have strong opinion on this or do I not? Share your opinions too if you're watching. I'm just gonna see. So hopefully, someone says, hopefully this tax relief scam will come back to bite them in the butt. Well, I can tell you one thing it's not doing, and we're going to go to the next slide here. I've just got to find it. Give me 1 second. I'm going to show you guys everything that else that I have, but I thought I had the slide right here, but I think I moved it. Give me 1 second. Oh, did I end up closing it by mistake? I may have. Here, I'm just going to see if I saved it, bookmarked it. It basically was a poll that was done recently, like yesterday or today. I can't even remember who had done it. And I had it saved, but oh, here's that cool post. GST holiday flop. Majority says it's not much help, purely electoral as Liberal popularity drops. Let's see if I can find the poll. Okay, there you go. This is the most recent poll. This was done December 4th. So after this announcement, it hasn't helped Trudeau at all. You know what? Maybe the majority of Canadians are actually more awake and aware than I thought, because they're not letting this. Maybe it's just the Truanons on Twitter that are blindly following their cult leader, but maybe the majority of Canadians are still not letting it dissuade them. But yeah, the other thing was the 250 bribe. This latest poll is well deserved. Okay, the $250 bribe. I know some of you will say we really need that money, and I'm not discounting that at all. But I think people don't understand what it means when the government gives $250 to millions and millions of Canadians. That money is not free. That money is government spending. So the government debt will increase. And for every cent the government overspends from what it brings in, it directly causes inflation. It directly affects the value of our dollar. So while it might be $250 in your pocket right now, over the next year, you're probably going to pay it back 3-4 times just in inflation. So I was trying to remember, I had looked up how much that was going to cost the Canadian dollars. I'm just going to double ask here. How much will the 250? I don't know if I asked the question correctly. Okay, so the estimate is $4.7 billion. So to give you guys an example of what that means, I'm just going to. We all know they spent like $500 billion. Canada, it's bringing up US. About 500. No, that's not what I'm looking for. If somebody has it, put it in the comments, or if somebody wants to go look for it. What's the usual spending? Kind of, and go back like 10 years, because I'd like to see what it was when Harper was in power as well, and not just the Liberal government. I know in COVID that it was like an extra $500 billion. But yeah, the cost is $4.5 billion. And the number of recipients, like people who should be getting the check, is 18.7 million Canadians. But is it only for Canadians? That I don't know. Is it also for our new immigrants? Maybe. Okay, next subject. This is one that I really wanted to talk about, and I've wanted to talk about it for a while, because I don't think people understand. So people have been brainwashed into civilization suicide. So what Elon is talking about, and he's talked about this before, is population collapse. When you have all the World Economic Forum elitists saying we need to stop having babies because we're overpopulating the planet and we're causing climate change, therefore we should not be having babies. Now, they're saying that that's going to kill the planet. Well, what Elon is saying is civilization collapse is actually a greater risk for humankind than overpopulation. I'd love to kind of talk about this too in another episode and bring in the data of what it looks like if we were to live in like we have so much room to live. Canada is a perfect example of that. I don't have neighbors. I can't look because I have my headphones in, but I don't have neighbors for almost 1.5 kilometers. So the problem is not that we don't have the space, it's we don't have the time to build the houses for the immigration. But yeah, birth rates. I actually looked up some data on this as well, so people would understand what that means. But first, I'll talk a little bit about this tweet, and it's quote tweeting another tweet. So I'll go into that because the other tweet was the one that I liked here. So what's the plan to make people want to have children again? $4,000 a month mortgage gets a starter home, with both parents working full-time to afford 2 cars and bills, while daycare costs $1,500 a month per child. Neighbors no longer help each other, right there. And families live far apart. And even if they were close, everyone is working full-time. School gets out at 2:30. Corporations want everyone back in the office until 5 every day. One day at an amusement park costs around $500. Call me crazy, but it just doesn't sound that appealing if I was young again. So this is Louis C.K. I don't follow him. Maybe I will. He's a comedian. So he made that post, and then this guy says, oh, this is a long post. I'm going to read it. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with all of this. I didn't read the whole thing, but Elon retweeted it. So I trust a lot of the stuff he says. Not everything. Before you come at me, I have some concerns about the brain chips and the whole living on Mars thing. But But yeah, some of the stuff, like especially when he talks about population collapse, government spending and stuff, I agree with. And the free speech, I agree with. But I don't agree with everything. You don't fix a declining birth rate. So I'm going to read this out. You don't fix the declining birth rate with subsidy or financial incentives. The kids are too expensive argument is a convenient cope. People claiming they can't afford children are usually rationalizing deeper issues. They don't want them. They just don't want them. Having children is as expensive as you choose to make it. And for all of human history, people with far fewer resources managed to raise families. The problem isn't financial, it's cultural. I agree partly with that, but not completely. We live in a society that has systematically psyop and brainwashed people into believing children are a burden, not a blessing. Women are told that motherhood is a sacrifice and a hindrance to their career, as if chasing corporate promotions and vanity metrics is more meaningful than creating life. Men are infantilized and taught to fear responsibility. Worst of all, we've cultivated a nihilistic, I don't know if I said that word right. Again, I'm French. If I haven't heard it, I probably don't know how to pronounce it. Worldview that makes people see no point in building a future. The solution starts with changing the culture. I agree fully with that. We need to instill pride in people, pride in their ancestries, their legacy, and the future they could create. Optimism about what's to come has to replace the relentless doom scrolling of modernity. Modernity? No, modernity. Modernity. Yeah, I probably butchered it. So, kids aren't just as an expense, they are the greatest investment a human can make, and we need to start celebrating that. Fully agree with that. In the short term, the more realistic strategy is doubling down on those who already value family, focusing on motivating families with 2 or 3 kids to have 1 or 2 more. It's much easier to expand a family than to convince couples to start from scratch when they've been ideologically poisoned against the idea. Finally, we need to stop glorifying the miserable, atomized single life and the media narratives that turn parenthood into a joke or tragedy. Yes, parenting is hard, but everything worth doing is. Yes. The joy and purpose it gives far outweighs the sacrifice. Once we get that cultural shift rolling, the financial complaints will fade away like the convenience excuse they always were. So that's what he's saying. Do I agree with everything? No. I do think there is a financial aspect to it. Like my husband and I have actually had these discussions. We have 4 kids. So I have 2 kids with him, 2 from a previous marriage. So I have 4 kids. I've birthed 4 kids. I've been pregnant 6 times. And so we've been having that discussion. Do we want another child now? I just turned 40 this year. The big 40. Yeah, I don't understand those who lie about their age. 40 is a huge milestone that I'm extremely proud to hit. But I've turned 40 and we've had that discussion, do we want another kid? And when you get to the higher numbers, things cost more. Like we just had to buy a vehicle that could fit the entire family if we had another kid. So we're planning on having 1 more. Who knows? Maybe more if we feel God is leading us to, but I'm getting there, up there in the age category for kids, not in general. And yeah, so we were looking for an 8-seater vehicle. We waited forever for a Toyota Sienna. We had ordered one back in March. No word or confirmation as to when it was going to come. We needed another vehicle because my husband was driving a 2-wheel drive truck that doesn't make it up our driveway because we have very steep driveway with ice and snow. 2-wheel drive doesn't make it up. So we were looking at replacing my vehicle for one that would fit the family comfortably, and then he would use the Mazda CX-9 that we've had for, it's like almost 300,000 kilometers. So we're miling it out. We're gonna keep miling it out. We're by no means those who buy a new vehicle every couple years. Good to you if you do, if that's the kind of thing you're passionate about, great. But we've always had like older vehicle. Our two-wheel truck is like, I think, a 2007. Yes, it still runs. It's a 250. We got it for hauling farm stuff. So, but yeah, we just bought a 8-seater full-size SUV. And because we didn't know when the van was going to come in. And sure enough, the week later, I get a call. Yeah, we've got a date for when your van's going to arrive. It's going to be in maybe end of February. So still a long ways away. We obviously didn't have time to wait for that to arrive, but yeah, so that costs more. Getting a SUV that can fit people that's all-wheel drive costs more. And in Canada, you almost need that all-wheel drive. And then, so not just that, the house. We have a 4-bedroom house with an office. Our house is fairly big. We bought it, we built it from zero. I built it actually before I started doing this. I I did most of all the wood on the walls here. That was me that installed that. We have an ICF house, so it's foam, concrete, and stuff on the other side. So it builds like Lego blocks. So it was quite easy. But yeah, we were looking at our basement. We were planning on having the basement be like the coffee shop slash antique shop and stuff. Obviously, this was before I started getting involved in politics. Now that I'm getting death threats and people threatening my kids' life, I'm not going to do a business in my basement. So those plans have been changed. Right now, it's just a woodworking storage, not really being used thing. But yeah, even a 4 or 5 bedroom house costs money, and it costs more. So I don't necessarily agree with what he's saying. But how do you address all the things that cause people to not be sure if they want children or to not want children? Well, it is cultural. I think they've kind of made it seem like it's not a great thing, that it's not fulfilling, that it's not worth the sacrifice that comes with putting your children first. And I think that's a lie we've been sold. I remember, like, I've been a working mom. I am kind of still working right now, although I'm not getting paid for anything that I do with Unified Grassroots. I'm a volunteer full-time position. I know most people would never do that. No, nobody is as crazy as I am, but I'm fortunate enough. My husband's a doctor. He makes enough income for the family so I can put the time that I have into ensuring my kids have a better future. So, but yeah, when we kind of look, I worked before that. I was a police officer, full-time shift working police officer, and juggling family life was extremely difficult. I remember after I had my first daughter, Bria, this would have been 15 years ago. I think I was 24 or 25 when I had her. I'd have to calculate that. Can't remember. But after my 1 year maternity was done. And if you're watching from outside Canada, you guys might not have that. Canada has really wonderful maternity, parental benefits, even for fathers. And in the US, I know some people only get so many weeks and then they have to go back and there's still like this newborn baby that needs their mom and their parent, and now they have to put them in daycare. I don't think that's better for society. And I don't think that's good for moms or babies either. So, but I remember after I had my daughter and she was a year old and I had to go back to work. And I just remember I just wanted to stay home with her, but we couldn't afford it. It wasn't a luxury, or I thought we couldn't afford it then. And now looking back, I'm like, I should have just made that sacrifice. We would have been financially fine. We had a house that we bought for like 140,000. This is when they were a lot cheaper in North Battleford, and my ex at the time, he was a police officer too, and he made plenty that we would have been able to afford. We would have had to make some sacrifice, but we would have been fine. And now looking back too, parts of me thinks, I wish I had like a smaller house that we wouldn't have the debt that we have, and that and even I went to my friend's house, and our living room's big, and maybe it's just my mindset just changing in the last 4 years as to what is more important for me and my husband. And I love having my kids close. I love that closeness that you have in a family where not every kid is separated into their own bedrooms on their electronics. I love like when we're all together, like going camping and stuff, we all stay together in this like smaller trailer or even a tent. I just love that. And I start thinking, well, you know what? If the reason we're not having children is because we don't have the room or we don't think we have the room, then maybe the kids will start sleeping two to a room. Like we have that right now. My two youngest sleep in the same bed. So the 2-year-old and the 5-year-old. And they love it. They adore each other. They're so close. They play together every day. They just adore each other. They might fight once in a while, but it's very, very minimal. And I like that closeness. So yeah, cultural change. You look at other cultures, other countries, and they do things very differently. Many countries, the whole family will sleep in the same room. The entire kids will sleep in the same room. And if you go look at those culture, a lot of them are a lot happier than we are, even if they have a lot less. And it makes me wonder, is the way we live our culture even the best way of doing things? We don't have the family closeness. When our elders get older, they get shipped into a home instead of the whole family taking care of them. It's things that I ponder. Are we better off? Now, I want to talk about something too, like mother burnout. If you go back and look at history, mothers didn't do it alone. They didn't have 5, 6, 7 kids hanging on their hip and watching them 24/7 by themselves. If you go back in history and culture, there was a community helping raise that child. Usually the grandparents would be living with that family, helping raise, or the aunts that never had kids of their own would come and help the mothers in the family, or they would hire people to help as well. In the past, mothers didn't do it alone. And you're seeing more and more of that happening where families nowhere near. And he mentioned that in his post that I just shared, families nowhere near. And it really happens. I honestly think that's one of the reasons less children are being born, because they're being mothers are being left to fend for themselves. And it's not a village raising a child anymore. In fact, that's like frowned upon. It's anytime somebody suggests that, like maybe help other people, like a perfect example of this is like if you go on a plane ride and there's a baby crying, and then mom is so overwhelmed now because it's been going on for an hour and she can't calm her baby down and she's crying herself, therefore stressing the baby. There was a post like a few weeks ago of a lady saying, hey, I don't mind that your baby's crying. I would love to help you, but I don't know if I ask you if it'll upset you or offend you. I don't want to offend you, but what should I do? She was asking the general, should we see if mom needs help? Yes. And if mom doesn't, she'll let you know. But this cultural shift that moms have to do it all alone. Like I've had times where I've seen a child misbehave and treat his mom poorly. And I said, you shouldn't say that to your mom, you know. You should like adore her. And the mom, I remember that eye contact. The mom looks at me and said, thanks. And the child stopped misbehaving because it was someone completely outside of their inner family. And I've had that, some people do that with my kids too. I had a daughter that used to have tantrums. The second a stranger talked to her, it would stop. I'm not saying strangers talk to everyone's kids, but I'm just saying been a cultural shift, and maybe it's because we see all the evil in the world and the what ifs that could happen that used to be not be seen, and we don't have a culture that's intertwined where everyone knows everyone in the community now. Everyone's a stranger to everyone, so there is risk of danger versus before in a community everyone would know who you shouldn't let your kids talk to. Like they would just know because everyone would talk. And things have changed, and I don't know if it's for the better. And I think it's affecting the birth rate. But anyways, I'm sharing really deep thoughts here. I will give you numbers. So Canada's birth rate has been on a declining trend. In 2023, it was 1.26 children per women, down to 1.43. Or so that was in 2023. In 2021 was 1.43. So it's a crisis, and it's a declining rate if you don't reproduce at least what you have. So obviously 2 people having a baby in order to keep what you have, you'd have to have 2 babies. We're not even doing that in Canada. The decline has been consistent since 2009, with nearly all provinces and territories experiencing the same, except for Quebec and Nova Scotia. Why is Quebec and Nova Scotia not declining? I'm going to open that in the new link. I'm curious. The crude, maybe because the cost of living is cheaper in the rural areas. I don't know. Saskatchewan's pretty cheap too. The crude birth rate, which measures the number of live births per 1,000 people, was 10 in 2022, 10.17. Several factors contribute to this trend, including increasing the average age of mother at childbirth, which rose from 26.7 to now 31.6 years of age. So what that means is moms usually would have a baby by the time they were 26.7 on average in 1976. And now in 2022, it's 31.6 years. On average, women start losing their fertility around like 40 years old, I think. I don't know the exact data, but I was told less chances of getting pregnant once you reach 40. That we might face that issue. We haven't started yet. We're just waiting. Probably till January is when we'll start trying for another. I wanted to get like the whole Hashimoto and my health in order. So yeah, there's many different reasons. If women are not healthy, they're less likely to want to have children. And that's happening. Actually, that's a really, really big thing that I think no one's talking about is the health of women in general compared to like the 1980s to now. A lot of women have several comorbidities that put them at greater risk if pregnant. So, and that's one of the things even I myself considered. I have an autoimmune disease, Hashimoto, and I thought I was getting another one, psoriasis. It's not that. It's just an unrelated rash to autoimmune. My son had like a rash that was, I think, fungal. So I had like spots on my legs and my arms, and I thought, oh, I'm just getting psoriasis now. So I started getting my butt in order health wise, and I stopped drinking coffee. I stopped taking sugar, anything pre-packaged, pre-made, no gluten, because I'm like, I don't want to die. I should have taken it more seriously before. It's not psoriasis. But yeah, health is a huge thing. And if you have a lot less healthier women, they're less likely to want to get pregnant. So, what can we do to change this? What can we do so that women want to have more children? So, I went and looked at countries that have higher birth rates. And I kind of asked ChatGPT to give me an example of some of the pro-family policies that have been put in place. So one of the ones that you're seeing is generous parental leave, so maternity, parental subsidized childcare, so affordable, high quality childcare. Now that we're in the world of two parents needing to work to afford anything, childcare is almost like a must if they want to have children. So that was one of the one. Tax benefit, so income tax deductions for families, especially those with more children. So, like the guy said in that post, entice those who have already made the decision to have children. It's a lot easier to entice them to have more because they already know what a great positive things it is for their life. So if you can create policies to change and make them want to have more children, that's where I think we should go. So Sweden, so this was France. So France was some of the things that they did. Sweden did better parental leave, so they have 480 days. I think that's similar to ours. We have 18 months, up to 18 months. It was changed a few years after I had already had parental leave. Flexibility for working parents. This is huge. Like, because you have two parents always working now, usually for the most part, some people still do stay at home parent, which I think is what's best for children in the long run. But we know that people can't afford that right now with the cost of living. But one of the things is flexibility for working parents. I remember I used to feel so bad when my children were sick and I'd have to go home. And this was when my ex was a police officer. I was working for the federal government at the time. Him going home would mean they'd be short, and then that would be people's safety. So it was always, most of the time, me that would go home. And when my daughter started daycare, when you have a kid that just starts daycare, they're always sick because they're exposed to things that they weren't necessarily exposed before. So, but I remember feeling so guilty. But thankfully, I worked for the federal government. They had a really good program. It's just like leave for if your kids are sick. It's like is it parental leave, or there was another term. I can't remember the term. So that's one. Gender equality focus, encourage fathers to take paternity leave through financial incentives and cultural shifts. That's one of the things in Sweden that they've done. I remember when oh the video paused for because of the connection. I don't know why. But his wife was a doctor. So for her to take parental leave was such a greater sacrifice for the family than him. And I remember when he took parental leave, all the other officers were like mocking him and making fun of him for taking parental leaves. And anyways, I thought that was ridiculous. I fully cheered him on and supported him. But that's just an example of cultural shift that hasn't necessarily happened. Free and low cost education and healthcare reduces the financial burden of raising children. So, perfect example of this would be in the US. So, in Canada, if you give birth, we leave the hospital. There might be a cost of your hospital room of like $140, depending if you want like your own individual room. But for the most part, it's free. Well, it's not free. You pay for it in your taxes. So before you come at me in the comments, you do pay for it in your taxes. However, whether you have 3, 4, 5 children, there's no extra cost. In the US, it can be upwards of 20,000 just for a regular birth, never mind like a C-section or an emergency C-section or a situation where the mom stays in the hospital for a long duration of time. So that would be a good one. Have coverage for the people who don't have coverage. Like a lot of people in the US have like health benefits and stuff that covers that kind of stuff, but Hungary, financial incentives, Hungary, not hungry. Tax exemption. Oh, so in Hungary, women with 4 or more children are exempt from paying income tax for life. Yes, please bring this on to Canada. That would be, well, it should be for This shit should be something. Pierre Polyev, if you end up watching this, bring tax exemption for 4 or more children. That would be what I would fully embrace. Baby bonus, so cash grants and loans for newlyweds who commit to having children. So that's kind of neat. Subsidize childcare, expand access to childcare facility and free preschool for children age 3 and above. So those are some of the stuff that they're doing. Japan work-life balance, expanding the maternity, childcare. So yeah, they're kind of all similar. But the one I really like is no taxes for life for anyone who has 3 or more babies. There was another one that I read about something about if you had 4 or more, where you'd get more tax deduction. But one was like to go towards like a bigger home or SUV, but I can't find it now. Okay, so in Singapore, they have another one, housing benefit, priority access to affordable housing for family with children. Let's see. So Israel is one of the examples. Monthly financial support for families with children. We have that with the child tax benefit. Subsidized fertility treatment is another one that they have. I know the fertility treatment and stuff is a controversial issue for Christians because many of us believe life begins at fertilization, which means those fertilized eggs are little human beings. And a lot of the times there'll be like 14, 15 eggs. I know a few moms that did IVF. Personally, they're friends of mine. One of them had extras left over and they were done having children and she donated them. And so other moms who don't have eggs or whatever would be able to have them. I don't know if I could personally do that, just knowing that there's some of my children are out there into the world. And I know one more family where they said, we'll use up all of the eggs. If that means 10, 14, whatever, we'll do that. And they had a lot of miscarriages. So she ended up using all of the eggs. And she had, I think, two kids that were IVF. So yeah. So I know I said I'm pro family policy. I want more babies into the world and not less. So, and I know a lot of people struggle with infertility. So, but yeah, it's one of those things. What do you do with the extra eggs? I don't know. I don't know. But I do like anything that is pro family, that's pro growing families. But it's one of those things I've kind of sat and thought about it. I'm like, huh, I have issues with that. Not that people are getting it, just the leftover eggs. That's a little life. Okay, cultural and religious norm, a strong societal value placed on family and childbearing. So that's Israel. So that's actually really true when you look at Jewish culture, Israel culture. It's a lot placed on having a lot of kids and taking care of your kids even into adulthood. We don't see that in Canada. Like I grew up in a household where the second I left the house, I was left to fend for myself, like our whole family. And you could only stay for so long. And I paid for my own education. My parents didn't pay for anything. I paid for my own mortgage, paid for everything. And when my parents pass away, they're not going to leave this big inheritance. They're living their life and and there's nothing wrong with that if that's what they choose to do. That's not what I will do with my children. I want to set them off on the best foot forward. I'm not going to spoil them. I'm going to teach them about working hard for what you've got, but I also want to set them off with the best foot forward. And my husband has the same kind of value as well. So he grew up in a Mennonite slash Norwegian slash Scottish backing. I like the Scottish side of him more. I joke about that. If anyone's watched, what's the name? That show, that Scottish show. Oh, I want to find it. Why am I not remembering? But I always joke, he's my very own Jamie. If you know the name, Scottish show. Oh, shoot. I have airplane mode on. I'll search it here. Oh, it's right at the tip of my tongue. If somebody's watching, Outlander. Yeah, Outlander. Anyways, so, but his family culture and history is you very much take care of your family. So, like his dad's built up a farm over generations. He took it over. Him and his brother took it over after his dad passed away, and then built it, and they're going to leave it for their children as well to take it over. So my husband grew up on a farm in Alberta, in New Brigden in Alberta, and we were thinking of one day moving there to take over the farm. However, they've just put windmills all over the entire place, and you can't convince me it doesn't have an effect on humans, because every time we go to the farm, I get massive migraines and headaches. I get pressure change headaches too, so it's not like I don't get any already, but um yeah, and you can actually hear the vibration from them. So I don't know if people know that. If you haven't been near windmills, you can actually hear it. You can actually feel it, and they're really close to the farm and the house. So it's because of that. It's not somewhere I would consider moving to now. Maybe close to there, away from then. We'd still farm, obviously, but yeah, it's changed our future plans completely. And my husband thinks the same thing. It's completely destroyed the farm. Everywhere you look, there's these massive apocalyptic things. And farmers don't even know what they've lost. Like the farmers that have signed into it don't realize, and I'm going to teach this to my listeners because some of you may not know that once you sign onto that, it puts a permanent lien on your property. So if that company ever comes bankrupt one day, they can come for your property because your property is now collateral or lien for that business when you sign on to it. So let's say they all went bankrupt, the government could come and take over your land, technically. So most people don't know that. They sign it, think, oh, I'm going to get this big check every month and it's going to be great. And it's a unilateral lien on the entire property. They could come and do solar. They could come and do anything. They now have that lien on your property. And people don't know that. So my father-in-law, he fought against it to try to stop it from coming. They had a airstrip too. My father-in-law has like a small plane they use to kind of checking on the cattle and stuff. And a lot of the farmers in that area have that too. And because he had an airstrip, he was able to move it away a kilometer away from the house. But even then, you can still hear it. You can still sense it. So I don't think windmills, wind farms should be anywhere near where people live. But that's a strong opinion I have. And people can call me a conspiracy theory all they want. I just know how it personally affects me every time I go there. Okay, this is a long episode. I'm going to change to not talking about a couple of things I was going to talk about. So I'll bring them tomorrow. Last subject is, I probably talk too much. But I like to equip people with information too on how to approach these conversation on these hard topics with my listeners, because a lot of people don't know how to argue back or what to say when you have an issue with certain kind of ideological perspective. For example, like the woke agenda. How do you fight back the woke agenda? How do you approach the controversial topics like this next one, which is like puberty blockers transitioning children, all of that. That's a controversial subject. So if you hear me explain these things, it's also to equip you guys with what to say as a response to these things in a way that can't get you canceled. Explain why you're against this new GST rebate, or why do you have issues with that as the gift from Trudeau, or same thing with like the banning Airbnb. Like, what are they going to ban next? Are they going to say, oh, you have 4 bedrooms in your house, but you only have 1 child, so you're going to have to take an immigrant for the other 2 bedrooms? Like that actually has happened in some countries. They've actually taken your home and given it to, that's happened in Cuba. They'll take your home and give it to a bigger family and give you a smaller home. Like, anyways, I want to equip you with what you can say back. So this is the next subject and the last one. So big wins in Canada. 3 bills have passed in the province of Alberta. So these are like the gist of the 3 bills. Puberty blockers and hormones banned for under 16 years of age. Parental consent required if child wants to transition in school. So that means socially in transition, change your name, change pronouns, all of that. Women's sports protected as female category. So basically, people born as male are not allowed to play in female sports. So there's a few article. Now, some on the left, and I've seen this over and over, will try to mislead you and say puberty blockers aren't permanent. They're not hurting people. We're not doing these transition surgeries on children, blah, blah, blah. They'll say all these things. It's not true. Sorry, I talked too loud. I probably scratched there. It is not true. These things have been happening. They are not irreversible. They have long-term effects on fertility, a problem I just talked about that we don't want to make worse. But it's true. They have long-term effects. And you can look at the CAS report and the WPATH report as well as to the evidence on all of that, and the fake evidence that's out there saying that it's irreversible, that it's completely reversible. It just goes to show how much the bodies, the governing bodies, like the College of Physicians, the College of Pediatrics, have been infiltrated with woke ideology because they're denying these facts. But yeah, surgeries are happening. Breasts are being removed from children. There's an article here that talks about it. Hundreds of trans teens under 18 years old have had breasts removed in Canada, new data show. This was in September. I wonder if the number's even greater now. But they've had top surgery. So I'll link this too in the comments. Hopefully I'll remember. It's done. So this is April Hutchinson. If you don't follow her, I highly recommend you do. She is a powerlifting athlete that stood, yeah, that's what she says here. Let's go see. Powerlifter in Canada advocates for fairness in women's sports. So she had transgender athlete compete against her, and she spoke out, and she's been like kicked out, like just completely mistreated. So if you don't follow her already, I highly recommend you do. But so she made this post. It's done. The Fairness and Safety in Sport Act, Bill 29, has just passed its 3rd reading. We did it. Alberta leading the way. And in my title, I said, Danielle Smith, a leading light. And while she's not like a Christian, she hasn't declared herself a Christian, she's leading the way. And I think God can use even non-Christian. She's leading the way in bringing on change for justice and fairness, and change for God's kingdom. And I think she's a leading light in that sense. She's doing it unapologetic. I'm going to butcher that word. Unapologetically. Is that how you say it? Anyways, she's being brave and awesome. And I and that's not just in that avenue, because like even in Saskatchewan we have the bill, the bill of par- par- parents' bill of rights that's been passed, but it didn't even come close to everything that she passed. Like I said, she's even banning puberty blockers and hormones as well as surgeries. We're not banning that in Saskatchewan. So, and she referenced the CAS report as well that was released in Europe. This has already been banned for a long time. Canada's just really behind. That I want to talk about, that she's leading the way in. And I know there was a coordinated effort with some people disenfranchised within the UCP, that she wasn't doing enough. She wasn't working as fast as they would like. I'm still a fan of Danielle Smith. I understand that as government, you represent all people, not just a small portion of population. So some people will disagree with some of the stuff she's done or the time it's taken. I understand it's very difficult going into a position. You're working with an entire caucus and not everyone agrees with you. So you have to kind of bring all of the stray cats in. It takes finesse, it takes diplomacy, and it takes um, courage. And I think she has all of that. Every time she's released new changes, her approach is from a compassionate and understanding, but still firm approach. And I think we need more leaders like her in Canada. And I'm a fan. I'm going to admit it. I'm a fan of Danielle Smith. So these are my personal opinion, not necessarily the opinions of the organization I am president of. But yeah, I'm not saying they're not for it too. We fully celebrate the things she's bringing light to, especially the COVID stuff, which is the next subject I'm going to talk about. But I want to share that video with you guys. So it's 2 minutes long.
One of the amendments we are making to the Bill of Rights is to reinforce the right of every Albertan to make their own choices regarding the medical treatments they receive. This includes ensuring that every individual in our province who has the mental capacity to do so will have the right to decide whether or not to receive a vaccination or other medical procedure. In recent years, we've seen the challenges and hardship that can arise when that right to bodily autonomy is not adequately protected. It is my firm conviction that no Albertan should ever be subjected or pressured into accepting a medical treatment without their full consent. For me, this addition to the Bill of Rights is about recognizing that in Alberta, we believe that individuals have the right to make informed decisions about their own bodies without fear of undue pressure or interference by government. The amended Bill of Rights will also strengthen property rights, another cornerstone of living in a free and democratic society. The amendments will ensure that no Albertan can be deprived of their property without due process of law and just compensation. This is a reaffirmation of your right to own and enjoy the property that you've worked so hard for. There will also be an amendment to make clear that in Alberta, we respect the right of individuals to legally acquire, keep, and safely use firearms. For many Albertans, firearms are critical to their livelihood and way of life. I personally feel that law-abiding firearms owners have been unfairly targeted by our federal government for decades, and it is my hope that these amendments will better protect the rights of our farmers, ranchers, hunters, and sport enthusiasts going forward. I'd like to share that in my view, these amendments to the Bill of Rights are not just legal changes. They are a reaffirmation of the values that make Alberta one of the freest jurisdictions on earth. They are about protecting our rights, our freedoms, and our way of life. We are sending a clear message that in Alberta, the rights of individuals are paramount and that government must respect those rights at every turn. As your premier, it is my duty and my honor to stand up for your rights. I believe deeply in the principles of individual freedom and personal responsibility that have guided and built this province for generations. Thank you for your trust and commitment to the values that make Alberta the amazing province and beacon of freedom we have become in the world. One of the
There you go. And this video was posted by Paul Mitchell. I'll share quickly here. Here. His tweet. This is an old tweet. So just so you're aware, this is not new. This was from back in September 24th. So if you don't follow Paul Mitchell from Alberta, I highly recommend you do. He's a conservative there. He brings, I follow him. So I don't know if I agree with everything he says. I'm not saying I don't either. But anyways, I try to give credit to the people when I post videos. If I forgot any of them, let me know. I'll do so in the comments. Although this video was actually made by Danielle Smith, but he clipped it. So I think it was a much longer video. So yeah, she said this is not while this is changes, this is just a reaffirmation of the rights you already have and the culture that already has in Alberta. Now, Danielle Smith is leading the way in this, where I live in Saskatchewan. Scott Moe is kind of in a joke in that avenue because he's complicit in taking away the rights, especially when it came to COVID and the forced vaccination. While I will admit, I will say Saskatchewan was one of the better provinces. The vaccination for like government employees, they always offered testing versus in other areas, they basically put on leave anyone who didn't get vaccinated. So Saskatchewan was better in that sense, but still not what I think should have happened. It should have never happened to begin with. No one should have ever been forced, threatened, job, or exiled from society for choosing not to get an experimental vaccine. And I honestly believe as the truth starts coming out and we start learning of the true long-term effects these shots are having on people, I think the public's going to have a big axe to grind with the people who made those decisions. That for this reason, I don't think Scott Moe is going to stay the premier very long in Saskatchewan. I think he will be stepping down soon as that pressure increases. Danielle Smith is leading the way, as in she was not in government when all of this happened. She came in after, with her platform being this should have never happened. It's probably biggest reason why she got elected, why she won the leadership race. And she's following through on that as well with legislation. And hopefully it's going to create enough pressure to also be implemented in other provinces. Accountability needs to happen and things put in place to ensure it never happens again. And until that happens, there will be no trust in government. There will be no trust in our health institution. There will be no trust in our policing. And to be honest, I don't think that trust is going to be rebuilt this generation. I think it's going to take several generations to rebuild it. But anyways, like I said before, someone on my show is having issues with me bringing Christianity into this. My show is from a Christian perspective. If you don't like that, then maybe this is not the show for you. I'm not going to put God in a box and shy away from God because one person doesn't want to hear it. Go to a different show. I talk about my experiences from my own Christian perspective, and because it's who I am. This is my show. It's called Salt and Light for a reason. So go listen to someone else that doesn't bring Christian into it. I am not putting God in a box, and I'm not shying away from talking about Jesus and him being the answer to everything evil in the world and to stopping all evil in the world. So, okay, so Danielle Smith, she's leading the way. And she's talking about property rights. She's talking about firearms rights and what happened during COVID. And now I want to bring up another point too, because I vaguely mentioned to her addressing, or I vaguely mentioned a lot of people trying to get rid of her at that last AGM, or talking about trying to get rid of her at that last AGM. And she won with super majority vote, 90% approval rating. So obviously it wasn't everyone. It was just a lot of really loud voices. And like I said, I wasn't one of those disenfranchised with her. I like what she's been doing. But I want to talk about something we do on the right that really affects the political realm and how we affect change in the political realm. And I'm going to compare it to what the left does so that it gives us a greater understanding of what we can do better and what we can do to influence change and how we can go about doing that. I will give you the left's example. The left will have an issue that they want to bring on change. They'll go to a politician and they have a list of 10 things they want that politician to do. So I won't give an example, but bring on more LGBTQ stuff pushed in the schools, or stop saying the Lord's Prayer. All these different things. The left will come to a politician. The politician, whether on the right or the left, will say, I can't do all of these things, but I'll do this one thing. And then the left will celebrate them. They'll lift them up in a pedestal. They'll give them a bunch of donations. And that politician's like, oh, okay, well, that wasn't so hard. Maybe I can do another thing on that list. The right, we give the politician a list and they'll do 9 out of those 10 things. And then that one thing that they didn't do will attack, will say, I'm never voting for you, I'm never supporting you, you're the worst politician out there, you're not really conservative because you didn't do that one thing. And that leaves them disenfranchised. Well, I'm never going to please anyone. We need to work on this from the right's perspective. When you have a politician that's going in the right direction with things, we need to recognize that they're going in the right direction with those things. If you have a politician that's done like the Parental Bill of Rights, don't attack him for everything he didn't do right. Recognize, hey, great job on that. Can you address this now? So, and I kind of recognize I do it too. I probably just did it a little bit ago when I was addressing Scott Moe's failure with COVID. But again, I don't think he's ever going to address it. If he was to, I will recognize when he does. When he did the parental rights legislation, we had an entire organization backing him, whether it was on social media, in the comment section, via phone calls and email. We did an entire campaign. We actually lobbied for this changes before it happened. We had thousands of people calling them, contacting them, writing letters and such. And we supported that change in the public opinion area. We actually had teams of people commenting and stuff, and we equipped them with what kind of information to put out, what kind of facts to put out to support them. We shared stories of what was happening across Saskatchewan on why these policies were needed. And I know many said in the media, oh, these aren't true. Actually, everything I've reported on has been factual and true. You may not like it, but it is happening. Whether you want to acknowledge it or deny it, it is happening. So I'm very someone who stands strong on my conviction. One of them is being truthful and honest. And if I make a mistake, I will correct it as soon as I realize I've made a mistake. But I learned one thing in policing. Once you lose your credibility, you don't gain it back. So when I put information out there that has happened, if I don't know if it's happened and I'm just hearing about it and I want to find out more, I'll ask a question. Has anyone heard of this happening? Does anyone have evidence that can get back to me? It won't be a fact. It's going to be a question. But yeah, so anyways, we need to do better on the conservative side. And Danielle Smith is doing a lot of great things. And I think we need to stop attacking her when she's doing the right things, when she's bringing on the new changes. And she's facing enough attack from the left. She doesn't need it from our side. So yeah, so that's last thing. I know I said that was the last story. We do have quite a bit of listeners here. Last story, I'm going to talk about it tomorrow because probably people are finding this a little long. Next story, I just don't want to forget this one. It goes against the same kind of woke agenda stuff. Leaked Canadian military internal survey asks soldiers if they have purchased extremist group merchandise within the last 2 to 5 years, such as Make Canada Great Again hat. Here is the full leak anti-hate military questionnaire sent to all soldiers. So I think he has it in the thread. Let's see. Oh. Yeah, right here. Do you guys see that? So apparently, Make Canada Great Again is controversial and it's an extremist thing to say. Oh, our military is going full on woke. Here's our other one. Are you aware of any CAF members outside your current unit who belongs to extremist group? So apparently extremist group is saying you want Canada to be good again. That is unreal. It just goes to show the state of our Canadian army is and how fully entrenched the woke ideology has come in. When you start saying that Make Canada Great Again is extremist merchandise, again, it's one of those things. Are you kidding me? I wanted to add an explicit name in there, which I didn't, because like I said, it's something God has worked on me with. But anyways, that is it for today. We covered quite a bit, shared a lot of thoughts. I'm hopefully going to be doing shorts of some of the stuff that I've said to be posting on YouTube, just so that people don't have to share this entire video. It's a lot of information to take in. But if we do small shorts, I think that can be easily shared. And that was the goal too with this show. It's live, so it's not pre-recorded and posted. It's live. I interact with my listeners, even the ones I don't necessarily agree with. and and the ones that I do, I'm just going to see if I've missed some comments here before I go. I don't know what that means. So this guy says, sets precedent and encourages other provinces elect leaders who will pursue it. Find leaders in other provinces who will do this and push it. Yes. So question is, if Scott Moe in Saskatchewan was to step down, who would be a Danielle Smith? Who would be one of those leaders that would implement these changes? And if you know of anyone, send them my way, because I'd love to back them up. I've been told by several sources on all sorts of different level that that's probably going to happen in the next year and a bit. I'm hoping it's going to happen. So only because I want justice and I want accountability and I want things put in place so that if ever we have another pandemic, it doesn't get back to how awful it was during COVID. And since he hasn't apologized or addressed this situation or this problem at one iota, in fact, he's pretended it never happened again. I do want to see someone put in place who will address it, like Danielle Smith. And I've said it over and over and over again, even directly to Scott Moe. So every time we talk and or meet each other in public or at events, I've said that. So yeah, and for the left who've added me as one of the controversies in Scott Moe's Wikipedia entry, add more entry to this, because we have chatted. I have met him in person, but I've also talked with many of the NDP MLAs too. So add that to the Wikipedia entries. Anyways, I'll let you guys go. I'll be back tomorrow. If you don't follow me on platforms, all platform is Nadine Jean-S. If you don't follow Unified Grassroots, the organization, I'm president of the Conservative Saskatchewan organization, Unified Grassroots. You can do so on our website, www.unifiedgrassroots.com.ca. I think it's .com. I should know this. Yeah, it's .com. I'm just bringing it up now. Yeah, unifiedgrassroots.com. You can subscribe there. You can join. You can also donate towards the organization. It will go towards helping educate people on democratic processes in Saskatchewan, and maybe even will expand to the rest of Canada with the work that we've been doing. So one of the things we did in the last year is encourage people to run for school board. We and I'm not going to give names or numbers or push on how many got in, but a big majority of the people that ran, that we encouraged to run, won in Saskatchewan. So there was other groups too doing the same thing in Saskatchewan, but we were mostly provinces wide in the rural communities. So a big percentage, over 90% of the candidates that ran won. So some of that thing, we encourage people to run for MLA as well, and a lot of those people won as well in Saskatchewan. So, and convince people, well, not convince, it's kind of encourage and just teach people these are some of the things you can get involved with. These are the places you can have the biggest influence. Join boards, get a party membership, and get directly involved with your elected officials, go to their events, have conversations with them and stuff. So it's been extremely effective, and we've had huge gains and huge wins even just in the last general election. So that was really good. But yeah, I will let you go for now. If you don't already follow me, do so. Join our website, subscribe, donate if you want. And the money to the that you send to Unified Grassroots doesn't come to me. It goes to the organization towards our effort. For, like I said, I don't get paid as being the president. I don't get paid for the work that I do with Unified Grassroots. Sometimes they refund me some of the events that I go to as a representative of Unified Grassroots, just for the travel and stuff. So, but yeah, all that time and work is volunteer. I know. I might be a little insane. But okay, I'll let you guys go for now, and you guys have a good day, and I'll be back tomorrow probably around 12. I think 12 will be the time that I can easily say this is a good time that works. And we'll talk about other things. If there's anything you want me to cover or talk about, let me know in the comments, and I'll see if I can cover it tomorrow. See you guys. Now let's see if I can end the stream.